Almost every country in the world has debt. The United States debt has exceeded $38 trillion. The European Union, Japan, China, Germany, even countries rich in underground resources are deeply in debt. This raises an obvious question. If all countries are in debt, who is the real owner of this money? Once you start asking this question, everything you think you know about money and debt slowly begins to change. Because debt is not just a burden, as we tend to think. In fact, it is one of the core pillars of the modern world. Wars, crises, periods of growth, all of them are built on debt. And the strange part is this. When you follow the trail of debt, you never actually reach a real creditor. The world in general is in debt to itself, but that does not mean everyone is in the same position. Today, total global debt exceeds $310 trillion. That is roughly 3 times the size of the entire global economy. How did we get here? The answer does not lie in the credit cards, in our wallets, or in modern banking systems, but in wars that took place hundreds of years ago. In 1694, England was at war with France and had run out of money. The king asked merchants for loans. In return, he promised to pay interest from future tax revenues. To manage this system, the Bank of England was created, and that day something very critical happened. The state began spending money that had not yet entered its treasury. This idea spread. France adopted it, the Netherlands adopted and refined it. The United States used the same system to finance both its war of independence and its expansion. As a result, debt stopped being a sign of weakness and became a display of power. Empires no longer fought wars to seize gold. They issued bonds to earn interest. War plans and battlefields moved onto accounting tables and balance sheets. Today, the picture is even more interesting. Everyone has debt, but everyone is also a creditor. Banks lend money, pension funds borrow, citizens pay interest through their taxes, and that interest flows back into their own pension systems. Take the United States as an example. Most of its debt is actually owed to institutions within the country, banks, funds, insurance companies, and even its own central bank. The amount owed to China makes up only a small fraction of the total. In other words, America's debt largely belongs to itself. This is not unique to the United States. Countries hold each other's government bonds. Everyone trusts someone else's promise. It's a bit like a table game where everyone has borrowed cards from one another. As long as no one leaves the table, the game continues. But the real rule makers are the markets, large funds, central banks, massive capital managers. When they lose confidence in a country, things deteriorate very quickly. Currencies lose value, interest rates rise, and people are forced to pay the price. Democracies choose who governs. Markets decide who survives. Central banks sit at the very center of this system, because even the money we use is, in reality, a form of debt. Every unit of money circulating in the markets corresponds to a liability written somewhere else. There's no such thing as debt-free money. This system has survived for years thanks to one thing: trust. No one expects countries to fully pay off their debts. In fact, that is not how the system works. Debt does not exist to be paid off, but to be rolled over continuously. New debt is used to pay old debt. The most important thing is that interest payments continue without interruption. Strange as it sounds, this is the reality. If the United States were to pay off all of its debt one day, the global financial system would lose its safest asset. Money would dry up, markets would freeze. In other words, paying off the debt could break the system. That is why politicians' promises to eliminate the national debt are neither realistic nor achievable. The goal is not to eliminate debt, but to keep it manageable and trustworthy. But this is where the darker side appears. Interest payments are not distributed equally. They mostly flow upward toward capital holders. Debt is therefore not only a transfer between countries, but also a transfer within societies. As debt grows, inequality grows with it. In the end, there is no single culprit. Not China, not the United States, not the IMF. All of them, and us. We are all part of this machine. Debt has turned into money. It has become a normal part of life. But everything depends on trust. When trust disappears, we are reminded of what debt truly is, a promise that is very difficult to keep.